Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Chris Chan Quickie reading, where today, ladies and gentlemen, going through the array, I should say, about Chris's history with electronics or technology, we now go to Chris and his plethora of electronics that he has hoarded/collected over the years. So, let's get started. Chris has a long, arguably addictive relationship with electronics, yet he sometimes still struggles with their basic operation and maintenance. His most important tool is arguably his computer, his window to the world. Chris uses it to connect to the internet, to talk with his fans, circa, and to promote his way of life. Sadly. Needless to say, just like everything else he owns, Chris manages to ruin it in some way, going through several over the years. And it all begins at the very top. Origins. It's no secret that autistic people can excel when put behind a mouse and keyboard. Chris, the autistic challenge that he was introduced to computers as a toddler by his technically inclined father. According to Chris, Bob led him into the digital world with a Commodore 64. In 2018, Chris, feeling nostalgic, dug out said Commodore 64 and requested help from his fans to repair it. When Chris's ludicrous claim that he started playing on the computer at 6 months is obviously false, he definitely started structuring his life around computers at a very young age and has never viewed reality without the filter of a PC. Chris would go on to a major in a CAD degree, combining his artistic interest with his attachment to the tool that made his saga possible. He dabbed in HTMLs after taking a relevant college course, surely feeling like an accomplished computer scientist in the process. I mean, one step at a time, I suppose. Chris's equipment. Chris has had experience with older bits of technology. In a tweet from the 1st of June 2021, he discovered his early childhood. Part of the tweet mentioned that the Chandler family owned a Capacitance electronic disc player, which was a failed early 80s video format that worked in a similar fashion to vinyl records, but used plastic caddies for storage and loading the discs into the player. So it's basically like an 80s version of a Squareo or a Laserdisc, basically very defunct bits of history that sort of had their part in lasering the way into how we got into the conditions of where we are. Possibly equivalent to, let's say, even the Nissan Leaf. Technically, it's sort of not really the first electronic car, but there have been plenty of electronic cars since, like Teslas and even Citroën and Renault have taken this on board. And bear in mind, even in 10 years' time, electronic cars are going to be the mainstream from now on. And you could almost argue immediately is that even technology from the 80s that didn't catch on certainly was the step in the right direction, you may say, from cassettes to DVDs to wireless. Basically, we've sort of evolved a little bit, and it's mostly to save resources and to make things almost instantaneous, that we can attain things almost immediately. Chris still had the CD machine as late as 2005. It can be seen in a photo of himself taken around that time. The CED player was probably destroyed in the 2014 house fire. Probably was. Oh, and by the way, that is actually this huge chunk of metal which looks almost like the not the Omega CD32, but almost like that Panasonic console that basically looked like an ordinary video recorder except a bit more square. This one looks like there's something that belongs on the dashboard of a car, or maybe from an 80s Cadillac, for example, owing to probably how wide the thing is. And good lord, that's where you would put the discs. I've never seen anything usually I'll expect something to be maybe half the length, maybe even a third of the length, but that thing looks like it could eat an entire pizza on its own. Chris also had a lengthy history with the CED's more successful competitor VHS cassettes, having grown up when it was the dominant home video format prior to the rise of an eventual supplanting by DVDs in the early 2000s. Much of the available footage we have of Chris prior to the mid-2000s came from videotapes. The videos on the Yep, I'm on TV DVD were transferred off of deteriorated VHS tapes, including both of his TV appearances. The photos were most likely scanned with a computer scanner, and the quality of that scanner is so low that rainbow streaks are present on most slides. Now, listen, I don't want a slight tangent I want to go on for this moment is that when I was like 4 years old and I was just about basically starting school, is that I must have been probably one of the last, maybe one of the last few generations that whenever, like when I was in reception class, they would still wheel in a television, quite a big television with a VHS video recorder underneath, and they would put in like videotapes of, let's say, The Jungle Book or some other Disney cartoon at the time. They would even go on to like those early childhood education tapes, and I'm pretty sure at some point we all sort of know what those are before things like, Coco Melon or Peppa Pig were invented. And bear in mind, Peppa Pig came out roughly a whole year after I started school, so we're talking 2004. So I can actually remember quite a lot of those, like those VHS education tapes quite well. And bear in mind, I wouldn't have to think about that for at least, from something from 22 years ago. But I think what's kind of nostalgic in a sense, looking back on this, is the fact that smartboard technology, which for those living in the UK and who were going through, primary school in the 2000s, will be pretty familiar with these things. I don't even remember if I was even ever in a classroom where we even had chalkboards anymore. We had like whiteboards, and well, the rest is history. Chris also had a sizable collection of softcore porn recorded to videotape. Well, there's also that. Not quite nostalgic because, there was no way I would even know how to have, that's one of those things. Chris is shown in the Chandler Family Christmas 2004, attempting to get his father to choose between a DVD or a dubbed bootleg, a VHS copy of Fraggle Rock. That's okay. In August 2016, Chris attempted to sell his copy of Disney's Aladdin for a whopping $3,000, under the incorrect guise that the Black Diamond Disney tapes were worth a lot of money. In reality, this is only the price that some sellers are asking for. It's highly unlikely people are spending that much on an ultra-common tapes that can be found at thrift stores for 50 cents, if they're not just straight up giving them away. In Chris's third house tour, recorded on the 9th of March 2018, he shows off boxes with old VHS tapes in them, saying they belong to Mr. C. These are likely the remaining VHS tapes in his collection that weren't lost in the house fire. In August 2018, Bob threw out a number of Chris's old VHS tapes, including his classic t-shirt. Chris, in response, abused and humped a pillow effigy representing Bob in front of her. Ew. It is unknown if Bob's VHS tapes were part of the dumping, but it's probably unlikely. I'm actually kind of a little bit surprised that Bob would probably throw out things for the very first time in her life, but there you go. Chris also had a retro-themed sonotube called VHS. Desktop computers. As of 2010, Chris used his family's HP Pavilion desktop computer, located in his kitchen. It ran Windows XP, had a scanner and a printer, or perhaps a scanner/printer combo that allowed him to scan comic books and print artwork, and had a version of Adobe Photo Deluxe installed on it, which Chris primarily used to type in text bubbles for his comics or to alter the truth. Since he had been able to connect to Mumble voice chats and effectively watch YouTube channels, it was presumed that Chris's computer also had a broadband internet connection, which was slightly rarer in rural areas at the time, but not unheard of. Laptop computers. An August 2011 video, however, revealed that Chris had a new computer loaded with Windows 7. Another video confirmed to it have been a hand-me-down HP laptop. Chris claimed that he had upgraded it, but further details are unknown. The laptop also had Mozilla Firefox and iTunes installed on it. Okay, again, nostalgia. Again, who here remembers Firefox? I mean, I do, but I can't honestly remember the last time I properly used it. Basically, I just use Google Chrome as my default browser and possibly, what's it called? The AVG Secure browser. I mean, I know it's quite commonplace for quite a lot of people, but I suppose it's just like, I mean, again, I also use things like Microsoft, search. I've never used Bing, and Internet Explorer hasn't been a thing in circulation for at least, 7 years, I think, at this point. Most of Chris's computers appear to have survived the fire, including his laptop and his upstairs PC. Although some data was lost, Chris used his iPhone to communicate with his fans on Facebook and upload videos to YouTube during his year of exile. The rental house apparently had a computer and an internet connection, so it is possible that Chris used it as well. As of 2017, Chris owns an Asus gaming laptop that he used for live drawing streams and to play Steam. Mobile computers and smartphones. From at least the early 2010s, Chris has been a loyal user of the iPhone. In 2013, he built the idea bookcase to hold his iPhone 5 and 2 iPod Touches he'd switch out for different content. I'd say it's actually quite a little bit of a novel approach when it comes to Chris, and while I do have to say I wonder what the point of owning 2 iPod Touches is when you already own an iPhone which already has the music for it. Whatever, it's just a way of Chris to be like never off the move, I suppose. He used the iPhone for anything requiring cell service, and the iPods for media and light computing. As of 2018, Chris has 2 identical iPhones, okay, that I still don't really understand, one for business and the other for personal calling. What exactly Chris requires for business, I don't think I'll ever understand and probably ever know, so whatever. He most likely can afford the deal because phone companies regularly offer buy one get one specials on new units. As of 2021, his phone number for personal calls is something I am going to edit out, because to be honest, I'm not going to be held accountable or responsible for docking Chris, and it's not particularly a great thing to do anyway, so there you are. For some reason it's there, I have absolutely no idea if it's even true, and I would not recommend anybody ever to find it out. So that's that. In May 2020, Chris got an iPad and stylus to attempt digital art. It's unknown if he's done anything substantial whatsoever. Computer troubles. To hear Chris tell it in the 2010s, his computer was on its last legs. In his conversation with Alec Benson Leary, Chris complained that multiple power surges resulting from blackouts in the area had disabled his computer for days at a time, forcing him to restore it constantly. In mid-February 2010, this was his excuse for failing to regularly upload new comic pages. When Alec reasonably asked him why he didn't just buy a new, more reliable computer, Chris claimed that he didn't have the money. A low-end replacement for his machine powerful enough on its purposes would have only cost him a few $100s, but apparently Chris had better things to buy, or literally just go down to his library and just scan his stuff in there. I mean, he did upload videos via his library like a few months later, but why he didn't think to do this for this instance, for to meet his actual obligations for the Solitude comics, I will never know. Chris often claimed to be unable to upload videos for Jackie or chat with her via instant message because he couldn't get his computer to start up. This caused him so much stress and discomfort because he worried that she would feel that he was neglecting her and would break up with him. Chris complained that he didn't have the money for a new PC, but all the while continued to buy new games for his second PlayStation 3. To make things worse, Chris revealed that there was a second working PC in the house, and the only reason he didn't attempt to use it is that it was blocked by a pile of clothes, which incidentally was the same excuse for him not showering. I'm surprised. No words. Just no words. Computer literacy. Despite having taken a course in computer construction, Chris did not know the difference between RAM and a hard drive space. When confronted about forgetting things so often, he claimed that his memory worked like RAM, believing that random in RAM means it only works some of the time, or randomly, despite the fact that it almost means the exact opposite, that it can access any requested piece of information at any time regardless of order. And the taser. Chris believed that he could shock his quartz crystals through the use of his phenomenon of piezoelectricity to create portals. He believed he could use a taser to shock some of his magic stones as a means to starting the dimensional merge. In reality, I'm surprised like Chris's legs probably still worked after something like that, or if he succumbed to his injuries as a result of zapping to the extreme. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Chris's love and his electronics collections. A fairly short, very simple little video for what it is. The only real things I can think about adding to this, I suppose, is the fact that, again, with all of these level of technologies, from his iPods to his iPhone to his computers, his laptop, one might have thought Chris would have had the fortitude to actually be pseudo-productive, to even running a very small, quaint little studio. But no, that's giving Chris way too much credit, and for other reasons we'll get into, just actually getting him to do anything is the least of the problems when it comes to production. But with all that being said and done, I hope all of you guys have enjoyed this video, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.